Hey, Walt here from WaltonPA.com as well as StogieReview.com with another Shooting the Breeze video. Much like many of the other Shooting the Breeze videos that I've done recently, this video is going to revolve around guns. Now, in the past, Shooting the Breeze was just sort of my way of naming the videos where I sit down in front of the camera and just shoot the breeze and just talk. Well, I've sort of morphed it into gun talk. It kind of makes sense, you know, shooting the breeze, shooting guns, you know, it just works. So, with that said, this is a gun video. Now, I want to talk a little bit about pocket pistols. I've been in the market for a pocket pistol for the past 3 or 4 months. I've been actually in the market longer than that, but I haven't really taken a good hard look at what was available up until about 3 or 4 months ago. Now, since that time has rolled around, I've been stopping in at local gun shops more often, talking to the people behind the counter to get their opinion on what they carry, and just get a good feel for the guns. I've handled a large variety of pocket pistols, or at least the ones that are available in my area, and I was trying to weigh my options on what I wanted. Now, you see, the reason I'm in the market for a pocket pistol is I generally carry a Springfield XD subcompact in .40 Smith & Wesson. It's a small gun. It's fairly bulky, heavy, but it rides in a crossbreed Super Tuck, and you know, I really can't say enough about that particular holster. I really love it, and I've been just completely happy with it since the day I got it. I mean, if I had to do it all over again, I would buy the horsehide instead of the cowhide, but nonetheless, I'm still very happy with the holster. It conceals well, it holds the gun firmly in place, and I haven't had any problems with the retention. You know, the gun doesn't ride out or anything like that. But, not to get kind of off topic, but the Springfield XD subcompact is a little big for certain situations. There are times when I'm going to places where I know the people that I'm going to visit aren't particularly gun friendly, and while my crossbreed Super Tuck conceals really well, I wanted something that would be a little more discreet. So that's something that I could slip into a pocket and it would go unnoticed. Excuse me. And you know, that's where the whole pocket pistol idea came from on my next gun purchase. Now, I've been looking around quite a bit, and the first place I went was Bud's Gun Shop online, and I go there very often just to get a gauge for what pricing is going to be like. Once I figured out where my comfort zone was in terms of price, then I went out and I started looking around at local gun shops. There's a shop pretty close to home that has pricing a little bit higher than Bud's. So going in, I knew what I was looking for, and I knew where it would be in my price range, and I started to handle a lot of guns and look at them and even ask opinions of the people behind the desk or behind the counter. I mean, they're selling them all day. They've got to know about them, and I mean, they don't really have to know about them, but they seem to really be in the know on what they're selling, at least in the particular gun shops that I go to. I realize that's not the case everywhere, but you know, these small sort of mom and pop gun shops seem to be really great for getting some information. So I headed down to the gun shop and I started looking at the variety of pistols. Now, what I had in mind going into this was a Kel-Tec in .380, a Ruger LCP in .380, a Smith & Wesson Bodyguard in .380, and I was toying around with the idea of maybe broadening my horizons to a Taurus, I think it's a TCP 380, and potentially even the Kel-Tec P11 or PF9, both of which are 9, I believe they're both 9mm. And I wanted to feel them in my hand and stick them in my pocket and just kind of fondle them a little bit to get a general idea of what I was getting myself into. Now, the first gun that I started handling was the Ruger LCP. It's wildly popular. The people at the gun shop are telling me that they have a hard time keeping them in stock. They fly off the shelves, and they're just really popular with their particular clientele. Now, that particular gun runs about $290 on Bud's, and it's about that price locally at the one shop that I stopped in at. And when I got it in my hand, it felt kind of small. I mean, I realized that a pocket pistol is supposed to slip into a pocket, and, you know, that'll be the end of it. However, my concern with it was it was really small, and I'm not really sure how it's going to handle recoil. Now, I did a video on my Beretta Model 70S quite a while back, but if you go back into that video and look at it, I make mention that even for a big, heavy gun, I mean, it's not huge, but it's considerably larger than the LCP, it kicks pretty hard. Now, I don't know whether it's because the gun was manufactured in the 70s, and maybe advancements have been made since then on recoil management, but that gun kicks really hard, and I was concerned about getting that same level of recoil in that tiny package of the Ruger LCP. So I was kind of playing around with it, and you know, I kind of dismissed the recoil thing. You know, if it's going to have recoil, I'm just going to have to deal with it. For what I'm looking for, recoil is going to be a problem, and you know, I'm just going to have to, you know, adapt. You know, learn to manage the recoil and get proficient with it. So I pushed the recoil concern to the back of my mind, and I started looking a little bit more. And I opened my eyes a bit more to the LCP. It is small, it slips right into the pocket, it carries well. But, you know, some of the drawbacks, or at least the biggest drawback for me, was that the front sights were so small. You know, I realized that it's a pocket pistol, and in the event that I ever need to use it, it's going to be really short yardage, and it's probably just going to be a matter of pulling it out, pointing it, and pulling the trigger. So I don't know, you know, how focused I'm going to be on those tiny little nubs of a sight. However, I like to practice with what I'm using, or what I'm carrying. So when I make a range trip, I want to be able to take my pocket pistol with me and, you know, run a few magazines through it, just to keep, you know, a bit of an edge and prevent any rust from building up, you know, mentally. So that in the event that I ever need to use it, I'm proficient with it. And I was looking at it in the range sense. You know, these sights are so small. Am I going to be comfortable with it? You know, I don't know. That's really a big drawback. And then next, I was looking at the slide doesn't lock back on the last round. Not a really big deal, but you know, I kind of like that visual cue of you're all out of bullets. I mean, granted, one more pull of the trigger and it doesn't go bang. That's a pretty clear indication that we're out of ammunition. However, you know, I like that little visual cue of the slide locking back. And as I looked around, I saw that some of the other options had that feature. I believe the Taurus locks back when it's empty. The Smith & Wesson Bodyguard locks back when it's empty. And I was willing to sort of push them off to the side and potentially deal with the minor annoyances that I was seeing, not knocking back in the last round, tiny sights, because, you know, after all, it is a pocket pistol, and I'm probably going to use it at close yardage. But again, you know, range use, where it becomes a small problem. Now, moving on to the next gun I was looking at, which was a Smith & Wesson Bodyguard. They are polymer pistols. They're 380, chambered in 380. And they come with a built-in laser sight. Now, that was a big plus as far as the cool factor goes. And I was going into it thinking, well, you know, if it's similar to the LCP and it has these tiny little sights, then this laser is going to be very beneficial, I think. So I go and I look at it, and what do you know? The sights are large enough to be usable. And that was a really big draw for me, and the slide locked back in the last round. Again, not a big deal, but you know, it was a perk. Now, the pricing on the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard, from what I saw, ranged from about $335 to $360-ish. And that was within my comfort zone as well. You know, I like the ergonomics. I am a Smith & Wesson owner. I don't own any Rugers. But I do own a Smith & Wesson M&P, which needed to be serviced by Smith & Wesson at one point in time, and I was extremely happy with the customer service that I received from Smith & Wesson. So, you know, there was another check mark in the plus column. In the event that anything ever happens to this gun and it needs to be serviced, I've dealt with Smith & Wesson before, and I've been really happy with the level of service that I've been given. So, again, big giant plus in the customer service department. You know, the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard is a little more expensive, but it's got a few added features that I like. So that was sort of the leading contender. And then I started looking at the Taurus. I believe it's a TCP. I may have the model number wrong, but it's a small pocket pistol, and it locks back in the last round. It has larger sights that are more usable, and ergonomically, I guess it's fairly close to the Ruger LCP, and it's a bit less than the Ruger LCP. Now, Taurus would have been a very good option, I think, if I could get over the horror stories that I've heard about Taurus. Now, no matter what I read, there's about 50% saying, Taurus is a great brand, they stand behind their stuff, it's well made, I've never had any problems with it. And then there's 50% that say, it's horrible stuff, I've had my gun back to the factory numerous times, the issue is still not fixed, it's as if I bought a lemon. And, these stories bounce back and forth from one extreme to the next. And when it comes to any sort of self-protection pistol or self-defense pistol, that really worries me. I'd rather spend a few extra bucks and get something with a reputation behind it. I mean, granted, Taurus does have a lot of good things going for it, especially the fact that it's very affordable. But I just couldn't overcome that obstacle of there's a potential problem there. At least 50% of what I've seen says there's a potential for a large problem. So I pushed the Taurus aside, and I started looking at the Kel-Tecs. Now, a friend of mine has the 32 Kel-Tec, and he loves it. It works really well, it slips into his back pocket, and he takes it with him everywhere he goes. So I went down and I handled a Taurus in 380. And I wasn't really thrilled with it. I mean, I'm sure it's built well, but just visually, the build quality didn't seem up to par with Ruger or Smith & Wesson, the two heavy contenders that I was looking at in the pocket pistol department. So after handling a little bit and playing with it, I pushed that aside, and then I went back to looking at the Ruger LCP or the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard. And last night I decided to take a ride down to another gun shop, which is about a half an hour away. They're the Handgunner in Topton, Pennsylvania. And I went to check out what they had, see their pricing, and handle the guns a little bit more. Because again, at this point it was a toss-up between the LCP and the Bodyguard. And lo and behold, in the case, there is a Ruger LC9. These guns have really caught the attention of the online community. There's a lot of people that went out and bought them right away, and as a result, I really haven't seen them locally. The one shop that I stopped in at really close to home, the guy there was telling me that they got two of them in stock, and within 20 minutes they were gone. They had people come in and buy them right away, and they haven't been able to get any more since. So I really haven't seen these, and I haven't been able to handle one. So while I was at the Handgunner in Topton, I had him pull it out of the case, and I handled it a little bit. And, it had everything that I wanted in the LCP, in the sense that it had larger sights that you could, that are more easily used, locked back in the last round. It was a comfortable feel in the hand. I mean, the LCP was a little small, and I was a little worried about that, but the LC9 was really comfortable. However, it was too large to carry well in my pocket. I slipped the gun in my pocket, and it felt huge. So back in the case that went, and just for giggles, I handled the Kel-Tec 9mm as well, the P11 and PF9, I believe. And I felt the same way. They felt comfortable in the hand. However, they are a bit big for my pocket. So I pushed those aside, and I was looking at the two contenders again, the LCP and the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard. And it's kind of funny because, I hate shopping with my wife. I love her to death, but when we go to a store for something and, she's been researching a little bit, we get to the store, she goes to the aisle, she goes to the place on the shelf, she sees it, and she's looking at it, and then a similar item catches her eye. And then she goes and compares, and then it's back and forth between the two items, and I just want to pull my hair out and scream and run out the door. and it drives me absolutely insane. But I found myself doing the exact same thing. I was probably driving the guy behind the counter crazy because I'm looking at the LCP, I'm looking at the Bodyguard, back over the LCP, back over the Bodyguard, picking them up, handling them, putting them back down, picking it up, putting it in my pocket, walking around the store a little bit, putting it back on the counter, grabbing the other one, doing the same thing, and I was really struggling to make a decision. Now, what wound up happening was I put my immediate concerns aside and I looked at the gun from an in-the-house practical sense. Now, if I am not carrying my new gun, whatever I decide to purchase, my Springfield XD will be at the house. And if my wife is there, she has access to it, and it's not a big deal. She can manage it. It's okay for her. But looking at the smaller guns, if I'm carrying the Springfield XD subcompact and she is at home, she is going to be at home with the pocket pistol. Now, looking at these two guns, which one makes the most sense for her? Now, I didn't think to bring her along with me because this whole time I was thinking about this gun traveling in my pocket and her never needing to use it. Well, now I'm suddenly in the store thinking about which one would she be more inclined to use. So I'm comparing back and forth, and the sights come back into play for the LCP. Excuse me just a second. I've been holding this cigar for like 18 minutes. I should probably light it at some point. So the sights come back into play. Are the sights on the LCP going to be large enough for my wife to use in a stress environment? And that's a bit of a concern. I don't think that they are. Now I'm looking at the Bodyguard, a little more expensive. The sights are larger, they're more usable, and it's got a laser. All she has to do is hit a button and it's point and shoot. In an emergency situation, she doesn't have to try to focus on that front sight, and neither will I in the event that I can just hit the button. So the major selling point at this point was the Bodyguard and the larger sights and the laser. Even though I was kind of leaning towards the LCP, it carried a little better in my pocket, and it was less money. So I'm sort of leaning to the LCP, and then I think about my wife, and now I just did a 180 degrees, and I'm locked on the Bodyguard. So I bought the Bodyguard. I was trying to build the suspense to not let you know what I bought, but I actually did go out and buy a pistol last night. So I haven't gone out to shoot it yet. It's been raining all day, and I was working from home today, so I didn't get a chance to run out. But I bought Smith & Wesson Bodyguard in 380. Comes in a little blue box. Inside the box, you get all your instructions and paperwork and fired cartridge, and all the goodies that come with a new gun purchase. And you get a small carry pouch. I guess it would be a transportation pouch. I wouldn't really want to be tossing this in a pocket. It's kind of large. And inside here, you've got your pistol, which is kind of dark and disappears on camera. But and we've got the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard. It comes with one magazine only, which was kind of a kind of bummed me out a little bit, because some of the other guns that I was looking at came with two magazines. I believe the Taurus was one of them. Here is the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard with built-in laser on the end. Chamber is empty, it's open, magazine is out. And as I said, the larger front sights are a little easier to see, which is good. You can see they're fairly large, or large enough. And you've got a built-in laser, which I don't know. Well, I guess it will work on camera. Strobe and off. And all of the laser is operated by this little gray button here. And when I first started looking at the Bodyguard, I was a little concerned with the laser because, looking at it in the case, it just seemed like, well, how do I turn that laser on? Do I need to use my support hand and hit the button, or, am I going to be able to reach it? Sure enough, as I handled it, I could definitely reach it with my trigger finger. The gun is a little top heavy, but it's a polymer frame and a steel slide, so you get that little bit of top heaviness. And it's got a built-in safety, which is here, which is pretty stiff. When I'm handling it, I usually knock the safety off with the knuckle of my thumb, and it's easy enough to do. You just swipe your thumb down and the safety pops off. However, the way that the safety is here, it's really difficult to engage it by accident. Actually, I can't engage it no matter how hard I push. I just can't get the knuckle of my thumb in the right position to really push that up. I need to use the tip of my thumb to push the safety up. So I'll never have to worry about accidentally engaging the safety. You really have to purposely engage it. 6-round magazine plus 1. It's got the pinky extension plate on the bottom, and it's got a flat plate in the box that you can put on there if you don't like that. In addition to that, it locks back on the last round, which is a plus, and not an I guess it is an ambidextrous magazine release. I guess you could switch that around if you wanted to, but easy enough to pop the magazine out. Another thing that I was looking at with these pistols is they're all double action. It's a really heavy trigger pull, and I believe the trigger pull on the Smith & Wesson is heavier than the LCP. Just kind of playing with them in the gun shop, it definitely felt heavier. From what I was reading, it looks like the trigger pull on the Bodyguard is about 12 pounds or something like that, and that's pretty heavy compared to my M&P. Now, being a pocket pistol, I really don't mind that heavy trigger pull. It's just something that I'll have to get used to. And, getting used to it may take a little bit of doing. I've been watching some Jerry Michalek videos on YouTube and things, and he talks about staging the trigger. With a double action revolver, you can insert your trigger finger and pull so far until you index part of your finger on the frame. As long as you're holding the gun the same way all the time, you can gauge where your finger needs to be and then squeeze from there, and it should break. So I've been playing around with the Bodyguard a little bit, and I think I have a comfortable position to do that in, and I'm just gonna have to take it to the range and practice a bunch and learn. Now, as I said, this is a pocket pistol, so I went out and I purchased a pocket holster while I was out at the gun shop, and I just bought the DeSantis pocket holster. This was $18. It's got sort of a rubberized kind of coating on the outside, so it sticks in the pocket when you draw the gun. The holster stays behind, and the gun comes out. Gun fits down inside the holster well. The trigger guard is covered up, which I was kind of concerned about. I didn't want the trigger guard exposed. When I was at the gun shop, they did show me a pocket holster. It was kind of weird shaped. It was like a big rectangle. The gun slipped down in from up top, and then you could actually fire the gun through the holster. There was a finger cutout where you slip your finger in and pull the trigger, and the whole slide of the gun was exposed. So you could fire it from the holster and continue firing. And to be honest with you, it scared the hell out of me, the concept of having the trigger exposed in your pocket. I mean, not that I plan on keeping anything else in my pocket with the gun, but it's there and exposed. It's a really heavy trigger pull, but it's still there. It's a concern in the back of my mind. So I went with the DeSantis and covered the trigger guard. And while I was there, I picked up some ammunition. Now, as I mentioned, I have a Beretta 380 that I've had for quite a while, and I bought self-defense ammunition for that a while back. And I still have some of it, but I wanted to pick up more stuff, new stuff. And the old stuff that I had was Spear Gold Dot. and I was just kind of glancing at the price tag. $12.99 is what I paid for it. The stuff that I bought last night was $23.95. The difference between the two, I really don't know ballistically, but this is a big hollow point with a big gaping hole in it. And the power ball that I bought has a nylon or polymer ball in the tip of it, and it will not clog, or it's supposed to not clog in the event that it hits a thick jacket or things like that. From what I understand, heavy clothing will get inside of a hollow point and clog it, and it will not expand like it's supposed to. But with the power ball, with the polymer little nylon ball that's in there, it prevents it from clogging, and it dissipates when I guess it kind of melts on impact. And from what I understand, they actually fire better because it's not a big flat hole. So I picked up a Smith & Wesson Bodyguard that I have yet to shoot. I picked up some self-defense ammunition. I picked up a pocket holster, and I'm really happy with the setup so far. I mean, I have yet to go out and shoot it, but the price was great. I was looking around on Buds, I think, first, and the Bodyguard was, I want to say, $370, maybe $380. At the shop closest to home, it was $355, and at the handgunner in Topton, it was $335. So I think I paid a good price for the pistol, and you know, again, I'm pretty happy with it. So, with nothing more to add, and my throat getting kind of parched, I'm going to close out this video. I want to thank you for watching this Shooting the Breeze video on pocket pistols and my purchase of the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard. And before I close it out, I'd like to pose a question to you, and I'd like to ask what you use for pocket carry, or, you know, if you're considering pocket carry, what options are you looking at? You know, which ones are you seriously considering? So, with all that question stuff out of the way and this video completed, again, thanks for watching, and until next time, I will catch you later. Happy shooting, happy smoking, and see ya.